The email hit my inbox at 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. I know the exact time because I've thought about it hundreds of times since. 11:42 p.m., not midnight, not morning. The dead middle of a Tuesday night when the rest of the city had already given up and gone to sleep. Subject line: promotion offer, senior director. I read it 3 times. Not because it was complicated, because my brain kept rejecting it. Like it was a message written in a language I used to speak, but had since forgotten. The blue light from the screen was the only light in my apartment. The living room was dark. The kitchen was dark. I hadn't turned a lamp on since I'd gotten home at 9:30. I just sat down, opened the laptop out of habit, and there it was. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. That particular hum, I know it better than I know most things in my life. The hum of a fridge in a quiet apartment at night, when you're the only one there, is one of the loneliest sounds in the world. This was the email I had been waiting 5 years to receive. Senior Director. The title I had whispered to myself during 6 a.m. commutes. The title I had rehearsed attaching to my name. Hi, I'm Senior Director. The salary that was supposed to change the texture of my life. The validation that was supposed to retroactively justify every sacrifice I had made in the last decade. I should have called my mom. She would have cried. Good tears. She would have called my dad, and he would have made a sound, that specific sound he makes. Half exhale, half laugh. The sound that means he is proud. I know exactly how that call would have gone. I should have felt relieved. Or excited. Or at the very least, I should have felt something that resembled a forward-moving emotion. Instead, I felt a heavy, cold stone drop into my stomach. Not dread, exactly. Not grief. Something quieter and more permanent than either of those things. Something that felt like finally arriving at a destination and realizing, as you step off the train and look around, that you have been on the wrong line the entire time. I closed the laptop. The room went completely dark. I sat there for a long time. I'm not sure how long, and in that darkness for the first time in 10 years, I had a thought I had never allowed myself to have before. I wished, truly, genuinely wished, that the email had been a termination notice instead. I need to go back further than the apartment, further than the firm. I need to go back to the kitchen table in my parents' house, when I was 16 years old and I first understood what my father's life had cost him. He worked for the same company for 26 years. The same desk, the same commute. He was reliable and good at his job. He was never promoted past a certain level. And he accepted this with a grace I did not understand until much later in my life. Because for a long time, I interpreted his grace as defeat. I watched him come home tired every night. I watched him fall asleep in the armchair before 9 p.m. with the TV still on. I watched him carefully, methodically cut coupons on Sunday mornings, not out of poverty, but out of a deeply ingrained caution about money that came from having grown up without enough of it. I loved my father. I want to be clear about that. I love him. But at 16, I made a decision that I didn't even fully realize I was making. I decided I would not be him. Asterisk. I don't think this makes me a bad person. I think it makes me exactly the product of the world I grew up in. The world that said, work hard, get the grades, get the degree, get the job, get the title, and the life will follow. The happiness will follow. The meaning will follow. It was presented to us as a sequence. A formula. Not a guarantee, exactly, but close enough to one that most of us treated it like one. My mother used to say, just get yourself in a position. That was the phrase. A position. As if life were a chess game and the goal was simply to place yourself on the right square. And from there, the game would proceed favorably. So I got myself in a position. I was a good student. Not exceptional. I wasn't the kid who made it look easy. I was the kid who made it look exactly as hard as it was, who stayed up until 2 in the morning before every exam, who treated every assignment like it was load-bearing. I made myself into someone who succeeded through sheer, grinding effort because I didn't have the luxury of natural brilliance, and I knew it. Asterisk, asterisk. The day I graduated, my father shook my hand. He had never done that before, shaken my hand. He always hugged me. But that day, he shook my hand and held it for a moment and looked at me, and I understood what he was doing. He was handing something off. A baton, a set of expectations, a story that he wanted to see go differently in my version than it had in his. I took the baton, I took it, and I ran. What I did not understand then, what I could not have understood then, because understanding it requires the thing you haven't lived yet, is that my father wasn't defeated. He had simply chosen different things to value. He valued presence. He valued stability. He valued being home by 6. He was at every single one of my games. Every play, every school thing. Every boring Tuesday nothing. I didn't understand what that cost him until I was 31 years old and realized I had not been fully present for a single evening in the last 7 years. I was 22 when I started at the firm. The suit didn't fit quite right. The shoulders were slightly too wide and the pants broke too low, but I had bought it with my own money and I wore it like armor. My first day, I got there 40 minutes early. I sat in the lobby and watched everyone else arrive, and I cataloged everything. Who walked fast, who seemed to know each other, who looked like the kind of person who would still be there in 10 years. I wanted to be the kind of person who would still be there in 10 years. I believed in the narrative then, completely without irony. You know the one. It's not a secret doctrine or a corporate conspiracy. It's just the water you swim in, the air you breathe. Until you can't tell anymore where the belief ends and where you begin. The narrative says, the person who stays latest wins. The person who emails on weekends gets noticed. The person who sacrifices the most demonstrates the most commitment. And commitment is rewarded. It is a story that turns self-abandonment into a virtue. Was exceptional at self-abandonment. I ate lunch at my desk every day for the first 2 years. Not because I had to, because I wanted to be seen eating lunch at my desk. Because I understood, even then, that visibility was its own form of currency. I worked until 8, 9, sometimes 11 p.m., and I did not experience this as suffering. I want to be honest about that. I experienced it as identity. I was becoming someone. Each late night was another layer added to the person I was constructing, was building a version of myself that my father's son had no right to become. In my mid-20s, I was promoted twice. Each time, there was a brief electric window of satisfaction, maybe 3 or 4 days, where I walked a little differently, where the world seemed to have acknowledged something real about me. And then the window closed. And the next target appeared on the horizon. And I locked onto it. I am not describing this as a flaw unique to me. I am describing the mechanism, the specific machinery that runs inside anyone who has ever traded their present moment for a future promise. The dopamine hits get shorter. The distances between them get longer. You need more and more to feel what a little used to give you. I dated in my 20s, genuinely. I was not cold or absent by intention. I was absent by priority. There was a woman, I'll call her Claire, though that's not her name. We dated for almost 2 years. She was warm and funny, and she cooked dinner on Sunday nights, and she made the apartment feel like a home, which is something I have not experienced since. I lost her not to a dramatic fight or a specific betrayal. I lost her to the accumulation of evenings where I was checked out, to the dinners where she was talking and I was composing a response to a client email in my head, to the Saturdays I spent at the office when I said I'd be home by noon. She didn't leave angry. She left quietly and matter-of-factly, the way you stop waiting for someone who keeps not showing up. She said, "I don't think you have room for this right now." And she was right. And I let her go because some part of me, some deeply compromised part, calculated that the job was the priority and she would be followed by another person. Later, when I had more to offer, there was no other person later. Not really. There were dates and brief things that went nowhere. And I told myself this was because I was busy and the timing was off. But the truth I sit with now is simpler and harder. I had forgotten how to be fully present with another human being. I had trained that out of myself. I had become very good at performance and very bad at presence. The first time I felt it, the first time I felt what I now understand was a warning. I was 20-7. It was an ordinary Thursday. I remember this. I walked from a 2-hour meeting into the bathroom, and I stood over the sink, and I looked at my face in the mirror, and I thought, I don't know who this person is, not dramatically, not with tears, just a flat factual observation. The way you might note that a room needs repainting. The face in the mirror was successful. It was tired. The eyes had the slightly dulled quality that comes from too many screens and too little sleep. But they also had the focused, forward-looking quality of a person who knows what they want. The problem was, I had stopped being sure that what I wanted was what I actually wanted. That same year, my friend Marcus quit. Marcus had been at the firm since before me. He was sharper than me, more naturally gifted, the kind of person who made complex problems look like light reading. He was on a faster track than I was, and everyone knew it. He was exactly the person you would point to as living proof that the system worked. One afternoon he walked into my office, sat down across from me, and said he was leaving. Not for a competitor. Not for a better offer. He was leaving to teach high school history in Vermont. I remember the conversation very clearly. I asked him if he was serious. He said he had never been more serious. I asked him if he had thought it through financially. He said he had and that it would be fine, and that fine was more than enough. I told him I thought he was making a mistake. I said it carefully, kindly. I said I thought he was walking away from something remarkable, and that he might regret it. He looked at me for a moment before he answered. Then he said, "What are you afraid of?" He didn't mean it cruelly. He meant it as a genuine question. And I sat with it for a long time after he left, months. Actually, and eventually I filed it away in the back of my mind, in a drawer I only opened late at night when I couldn't sleep. Marcus sends me a photo every September, the first day of school. His classroom. The students arranged in rows, imperfect and young and full of something I can't quite name. I look at those photos for a long time before I put my phone down. At 28. A doctor told me my cortisol levels were chronically elevated. He used that specific phrase, chronically elevated. He said my body was in a near constant state of low-grade stress response. He said this was common in people in high-pressure fields, but that it was worth addressing. He gave me a pamphlet about meditation. I threw it away in the bin outside his office. I remember thinking, as I walked back to the office, my body doesn't understand what we're building here. My body is not the priority right now. I treated the information from my own nervous system the way I treated every inconvenient data point. I noted it, set it aside, and kept moving. This is the thing no one tells you about the kind of ambition I had. It is not just a drive towards something. It is also equally a drive away from yourself. Every hour spent in the forward motion of the career is an hour you don't have to spend in the quiet with the questions you're not ready to answer. Work is an excellent place to hide. They call them golden handcuffs for a reason, but no one tells you how comfortable the handcuffs feel at first. No one tells you that you will put them on willingly, gratefully even, that you will mistake the weight of them for security. At 28, I bought the apartment. The one with the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city. The one my 22-year-old self would have pressed his face against the glass to see. The one that looked like every aspirational magazine spread I had ever flipped through in a waiting room and quietly coveted. I remember the first night I spent there. My furniture hadn't arrived yet. I ordered takeout, I don't even remember what, and I sat on the bare hardwood floor with my back against the wall, and I looked out at the city lights. And I thought, I made it. That feeling lasted approximately 3 weeks, asterisk. The apartment became a monthly number I had to service. A mortgage figure that appeared on the first of every month with the reliability of gravity. It was not a home. It was an obligation I had chosen and then had to keep choosing. Every month, in perpetuity. The same was true of the car. The car was leased, a decision that made sense in the moment as a tax. Optimization, and stopped making sense almost immediately when I realized I was paying a significant monthly amount for a vehicle I used primarily to sit in traffic and feel the particular despair of the morning commute. I had built a life that required my salary to maintain it, which meant I could not leave my salary, which meant the job was no longer a choice, it was a structural necessity. The lifestyle was a trap I had assembled myself, piece by piece, brick by brick, and decorated with very nice things. I want to describe the Sunday evenings. At some point in my late 20s, Sunday evenings began to acquire a particular quality of dread. Not the mild back to work tomorrow feeling most people know, something deeper and more systemic than that. Asterisk, asterisk. It would begin around 4 p.m., a tightness in the chest, a heaviness that settled into my shoulders like something physical, like someone placing a hand on each shoulder and pressing down. By 6 p.m., I couldn't eat. By 8 p.m., I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, calculating how many hours until my alarm. My body was telling me something every single week with the precision of a metronome. And every single week I overruled it. Just one more year, I would tell myself. This was the promise I made in an infinite chain of broken promises stretching from 28 to 32. Get the bonus. Get the next title. Get to a place of more financial security. And then you can figure out what you actually want. The problem with just one more year is that it works. It works just well enough to keep you going. The bonus arrives and it's real, and it's significant, and it resets the clock. The title changes, and with it comes a brief, vivid hit of validation that your nervous system interprets as evidence that the plan is working. And then the window closes and the next year begins. I was 32 before I stopped being able to convince myself. The deeper problem, the thing I could feel but couldn't name, was that I had lost the thread. When I started, I had a vision. Vague and borrowed from cultural mythology, yes, but a vision. Success, a position, a life that had the shape of something intentional. By 30, the vision was gone, and what remained was momentum. Pure forward movement with no destination. I was running, and I was fast, and I no longer remembered where I was running to. I had forgotten to define what I actually wanted. And somewhere in the forgetting, I had replaced the question with more work, which is an excellent way to never have to answer it. I want to say something about my friendships, because I think friendships are the thing no one talks about when they talk about the cost of this kind of life. Everyone talks about the relationships, the romantic ones, the missed proposals, the partners who left. That part of the story is legible. People understand it. But the friendships are quieter, and their erosion is slower, and by the time you notice they're gone, you can't point to the moment when it happened. I had 3 close friends in my early 20s. Men I had grown up with or met in college who knew me before I became someone defined by a job title. We spoke a different language with each other, shorthand, shared history, the kind of ease you can only build over years. I have not lost them. I want to be clear. They are still there. But they are there the way a photograph is there. I can see them. I can point to them, I can feel the warmth of them when I allow myself to. But they are flat now in a way they were not before. We see each other at the big things, weddings, kids' birthdays. Now, the occasional dinner that requires a week of scheduling and gets rescheduled twice. We text to keep the signal alive. Asterisk, what I miss is not them, exactly. I mean, yes, I miss them. But what I miss more specifically is the version of me that existed in their presence. The me that was not a professional identity. The me that had time to be ridiculous, to be unproductive, to sit somewhere for hours doing nothing important. That version of me required their presence to exist, and without their regular presence, he has faded. I am less funny than I used to be. I notice this. I used to make people laugh, really laugh, the kind that bends you forward. And now I am competent in social situations, and occasionally witty, but rarely, genuinely funny. The humor has dried up. I think it requires a kind of ease that I no longer have access to. My cousin had a daughter 4 years ago. I went to the hospital the day after she was born, held her for about 15 minutes, and then excused myself to take a call. That little girl is 4 years old now, and I do not know her. She knows my face. She has met me at family things. She knows I am the cousin. She is perfectly pleasant when we see each other, but I do not know her, and she does not know me. And that particular gap cannot be closed by showing up more now. You cannot retroactively be present. That is the one thing you cannot buy or earn or work your way toward. It is only available in real time, and once the time has passed, it is simply gone. Asterisk, my mother asked me last Thanksgiving, gently, carefully. In the way she has learned to ask things she worries I won't want to hear. She asked if I was happy. Told her I was doing well. I told her things were busy at work, but going well. I described several concrete indicators of external success. She nodded and she touched my hand and she said, I didn't ask if things were going well. I asked if you were happy. I looked at her for a moment, and then I changed the subject. I have thought about that question every day since. Not because I don't know the answer, because I do know the answer. And the answer is the only thing standing between me and a reckoning I do not know how to face. The breaking point wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a catastrophe. It wasn't a moment anyone else in the room would have noticed. It was a meeting. Specifically, it was a Thursday morning meeting about Q3 projections. I was sitting across the table from my boss, David. David is 55. He has the title I'm supposed to want next. He has the beach house in the Hamptons and the industry, reputation, and the kind of respect that is expressed. In the specific way junior people become very attentive when he walks into a room. I was watching him present the numbers. He is a good presenter, precise, confident. He has done this 1,000 times and it shows. There is no wasted motion. In the way he speaks, no hesitation, no searching for words. He is completely in command of this environment that he has spent 3 decades building. Asterisk. And I looked at his skin, which was the color of old newspaper. I looked at the circles under his eyes, permanent circles, the kind that no vacation ever fully fixes because the vacation ends and the body remembers where it lives. I knew his first marriage had ended 12 years ago. I knew his kids from that marriage were in their 20s and called once or twice a year on the expected dates. I knew he was in the 3rd year of a second marriage to a woman he described as understanding. Understanding, in this context, means she understands that she will sometimes eat dinner alone. She understands that certain weekends will disappear into work. She understands the terms. I had always looked at David as a destination, a proof of concept, a living argument that the system worked if you put in the years. Sitting across from him in that Thursday meeting, I looked at him for the first time not as a destination, but as a mirror. And what I saw in the mirror made me go very still inside. If I kept going, if I kept winning, kept getting promoted, kept doing everything correctly according to the logic of this world, I would become him. Not in the shallow sense of having his job, in the deeper sense of having traded the same things he traded, made the same calculations, and arrived at the same place, technically successful, visibly respected, and profoundly, irreparably alone inside the machine he had built. That was the moment. Not the email. The email was just the confirmation of something. I understood in that meeting room on a Thursday morning while the Q3 numbers went up on the screen. I had spent 10 years climbing toward a future that I did not want. Asterisk. Here is the thing about understanding your trap. It doesn't open the door. I used to believe in the vague, unchallenged way you believe things you've never actually tested. That clarity would be the answer. That if I could just see clearly, if I could just name the thing, I would know what to do. Knowledge would translate into action. Understanding would become change. This is one of the most seductive lies we tell ourselves. I understand my trap perfectly. I can describe it with a precision that would impress a therapist. I know the origin story, my father's life, the borrowed ambition, the traded 20s. I can trace the mechanism, identify the turning points, name the things I lost and the approximate moments when I lost them. And I still haven't accepted the promotion. And I still haven't rejected it. It has been 3 weeks since the email. Asterisk. I picked up the phone last Tuesday to call Marcus. I wanted to ask him something specific. Not was it worth it, because that question is too grand and too abstract. I wanted to ask him something smaller. I wanted to ask him if, in the moment of deciding, he was afraid. I put the phone down without calling. I think I already know the answer. I think he was terrified. I think the difference between us is not that he was braver than me, or that he wanted less, or that he had less to lose. I think the difference is that he let the fear be present without letting it be the deciding factor. I don't know how to do that. I have spent 10 years making the fear the primary input, the question I can't stop turning over, the one that arrives at 3 in the morning and refuses to leave, is not what should I do. The question is harder than that. The question is, who would I be if I stopped? I do not have an identity that exists outside this career. I have spent 10 years building one thing, and the one thing has become the answer to every question about who I am. What do you do? Is a question I can answer confidently and in detail. Who are you? Is a question that now frightens me in a way it never did at 22. When I had less to show and a clearer sense of myself beneath it. The title, the salary, the apartment, the car, they are not just things I have. They are the story I tell about myself. And a story, once you've been telling it long enough, starts to feel like the truth. If I let go of the story, I don't know what's underneath it. And I think that is the real answer to why I will probably accept the promotion. Not the mortgage, not the fear of starting over. Those things are real, but they are manageable. And I know that the real reason is that the question of who I am without this is a question I am not ready to answer. And the promotion gives me another year before I have to. I haven't accepted the offer yet, but I know I will. I will accept it because I have a mortgage. Because I have a life that requires its own maintenance. Because the math of leaving does not work in any way I have been able to calculate. But more than all of that, I will accept it because I don't know who I am without this job title. Because starting over at 32 feels more like erasure than like freedom. Because the blank page on the other side of this career is more frightening to me than another year of Sunday dread. Tomorrow morning I will put on the suit. I will take the train. I will walk into the building and into the elevator and down the hallway and into my office. I will shake the hands that need to be shaken. I will accept the congratulations with the right expression on my face. I will sit at my desk and I will begin climbing towards something I haven't decided I want yet. And somewhere in the city, right now, maybe in a dark apartment not unlike mine, maybe staring at their own screen in their own blue light, someone else is holding a version of the same email And they're wondering the same thing I'm wondering, whether there's a way out, whether they'd take it if there was.